Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's executive, which also has our education and young children's business on the agenda. Before we move in formally, I just want to recognise that today is the 29th anniversary of Dunblane and the sad incident that took place there. And I would just ask if we could all just take a moment to just quietly reflect on that. Thank you for that, everyone. We'll now move into our agenda proper, and do we have any apologies?
Yes, Convener, apologies have been submitted by Agnes Mullen, the Church of Scotland representative.
And apologies also from Councillor Gardner. Okay, do we have any...
Convener,
sorry.
Councillor Bundy will be here, either here or online, but he's running late.
Okay,
Got an appointment that he can't miss.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any declarations of interest at this point? Councillor Devine.
So I have a declaration of interest with item 10, the Bonus Cemetery Bothy. I'm actually a trustee, so I don't think it's good and proper that I take part in that debate because I've got a vested interest. Just a transparency statement on item number 9. I have been supporting the guys at the Wall Garden since I was elected, but I didn't submit a letter of support, but I just wanted to make that clear. So I think I can still take part in that debate. Thanks, Convener.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Spears.
Just to declare, I have made several visits to the Wall Garden, but I will be able to take part in this debate.
Okay, thank you. There's no other declarations of interest. We'll move on to the minute of the meeting held on the 13th of February. Are we happy to agree?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. The item 4 is the rolling action log, and I'll go to Mr. Moody for that.
Thank you, Convener. And as usual, the rolling action log provides information on those items where the executive has requested further reports and gives information on the progress with those reports. The rolling action log is, as far as I see, up to date, and it is available for members to ask questions in relation to it.
Oh, are there any questions in relation to the rolling action log? No, thank you. Okay, we move into the first item on our agenda, which is the proposed relocation of the Inclusion and Wellbeing Service and the report back on the consultation. I'll open it up but there are no amendments into this, therefore there'll be no debate. However, there's an opportunity for ask questions before it is formally moved. I'll open it up for questions to officers. Councillor Sinclair.
Thanks, Convener. Just probably a quick question. The relocation of the service, how would this improve the outcomes for the children and young people who access the Inclusion and Wellbeing Service?
Okay, thank you, Councillor Sinclair. Deborah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sinclair. In relation to a number of different points, I think it's very clear the benefits this move will bring for our children and young people who access inclusion and wellbeing service. The learning environment is far more positive, it's far more conducive to learning. We know that the connection between a positive learning environment increases engagement for young children and young people, but also demonstrates the value we place on them and their education. The location, also the accessibility, it's very much more part of a community with schools locally that will allow further opportunities for our children and young people. We see this as an opportunity to transform our delivery of inclusion and wellbeing service, to use the facilities really well at Dawson Centre, but also to maximise those opportunities with links to neighbouring schools, to our secondary schools, to really consider how we meet the needs of all our learners and deliver that engagement and learning in a number of different ways. So whilst the Dawson Centre will very much be their learning environment and the provision, we will really look to maximise the use of the wider community as well. Outdoor learning is a very strong focus for our children and young people, not just for physical activity and exercise, but also for development of the curriculum, learning for sustainability, and we see this as a huge benefit for the Dawson Centre and the surrounding area, including the Mugga, the green spaces, and again, the local community. The delivery of the curriculum, we will use the spaces really effectively. There's a games hall, there's breakout spaces, but there are really clear teaching spaces that we need to consider how we deliver the curriculum for the children and young people. Obviously, there's part of the site that's a primary area and the secondary provision. Again, that allows a clear focus on the different approaches within primary and secondary, but they're closely enough interlinked to ensure a really smooth transition from primary to secondary and that joint working wherever possible. We consider a wide range of achievements and qualifications for our young people in senior phase, and again, the environment and the facilities that will be provided at the Dawson Centre and the surrounding area and the outdoor space will really allow us to consider our offer of achievements and qualifications for our young people and how we can develop those better. The teaching spaces are far more effective, they're brighter again, they're conducive to further engagement for our children and young people, and also that improved digital structure will again allow us to think about how we deliver a curriculum and learning and teaching for those young people who are attending, but also for some young people who may be challenged in their attendance, to ensure that we are still engaging them in learning beyond the campus of the Dawson Centre.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I've got Councillor Patterson and then Councillor Kerr.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a long-awaited improvement. I think everybody's welcoming it. I was wondering though, obviously there's a huge amount of work to be done between where the Dawson Centre is now and where it needs to be. So I was wondering if someone from education could just comment on how the young people, the pupils, would be able to participate and collaborate in the development of the school to give them a sense of ownership and what is going to be their new campus.
Thank you, Convener. Thank you, Councillor Patterson. I think the first thing that's really important to say is this is not a lift and shift model. So we're not taking everything that happens at the Lauriston campus at the moment and just expecting the same to happen within the new Dawson campus. It's a different type of facility. And we've got over a year and work's already underway about planning what the curriculum will look like, strengthening links with mainstream schools, primary and secondary, so that young people are not just based in the Dawson Centre, that there will be an increase in them accessing the facilities within their school that they're attached to. So during the course of that process, as the head of centre and the senior team take that through at the Inclusion and Wellbeing Service, they'll be making sure pupils are fully involved and getting their views about what's required and what they would like to see happening.
Right. No, I appreciate that answer, and I appreciate it as kind of early days, but there's a lot. Could you give me an idea of how that would be done? Like, would it be school visits? Would it be online surveys? Just so I can get a sense of what the pupils can expect.
Certainly, I think that the leadership team within the Inclusion Wellbeing Service will be responsible for that, and they have direct access to the young people. So as the plans are progressing through different stages, then their opinions will be sought to inform the next stage of development. Obviously, working within the constraints that we have in terms of the budget that's available, and in terms of the design work that needs to be undertaken to facilitate that. I think it will be important for them to understand that it's about their wider education, and it's not all going to be happening in the Dawson Centre. For some it will, of course, because that's most appropriate, but where it is possible to establish stronger links with mainstream schools and give those young people access to facilities that they would otherwise not get access to, it will be important to have that conversation with them to make sure they're supported as we make that move.
Great, thank you. Looking forward to seeing the plans progressing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kerr.
Thanks, Convener. Can I ask what's going to happen with the mugger? Obviously, it gets well used by the community in that area.
Convener, the response to Bailey Kerr's question, we're engaged with the community, and a new agreement will be entered into them to allow them to access the mugger for evenings, weekends and school holidays.
So is there a group at the moment that has got a lease or a contract for that?
Convener, there is an agreement in place with the sports community group there, and that will be amended to reflect the new arrangements. And we've had active discussions with them, and everything seems to be going well.
Okay, I'll take some offline with Paul after just to clarify some things. Thanks, Convener.
Okay, thank you. Just to re-emphasise that the communities of particularly the Langley's area feel very much the ownership of the Dawson Centre, and I think it's very important to be able to build that relationship and maintain a relationship that allows them to continue to have that access. So can I ask a wee bit about the relationships within the community there, and how we can try and give them the assurances that they will still be able to access that facility?
Convener, we're actually we've got two options which we're engaged with the community group who manage the mugger at the moment under a lease agreement, and that is either to amend the existing lease agreement or enter into a new lease agreement. However, members can be assured that the evenings, weekends and school holidays access for the community will be in place and managed by the community.
Okay, thank you for that. I see no further questions. Therefore, I will now go to Councillor Sinclair to move the report.
Thank you, Convener. I'd firstly like to thank all the officers involved in preparing this report. As ever, with statutory consultations, there is a significant amount of work put in. I'd also like to thank all the pupils and staff at the Inclusion and Wellbeing Service for their input too. This is a service that provides a hugely important and valuable educational offering for children and young people who have significant and complex additional support needs and face some of the toughest challenges and barriers to learning that any child or young person could face. Therefore, it's only right and fair that they have access to a learning environment that is fit for purpose, provides access to appropriate facilities and resources for all learners and staff, and most importantly, suits the needs of the children and young people so that they can learn and succeed in a manner that is inclusive and supported for them. I'm confident that in agreeing this today is absolutely the right decision for this service. The Dawson Centre is, however, a much loved and valued community asset. while it has suffered, like many community centres over the past few years, from declining footfall, it is still considered to be an important part of the Langleys community. Given that for the past 18 years I've lived only a short walk away from the centre itself, I can attest to the number of community events that have been held there in the past, and I'm sure Councillor Meiklejohn will only be able to add to those stories. I can fully appreciate, therefore, that some within the Langleys community will be disappointed that the centre, as a community centre, will cease to exist in its current form. However, I am fully confident that on reopening as the new home of the IWBS, the community access that will be retained will be more than welcomed. I know that officers are working to rearrange the groups who currently access the centre, including my own advice surgeries, from the end of this month, and my thanks goes to them for their efforts, for the efforts they are putting in to do so. But my thanks also goes to the community groups currently using the Dawson Centre and the sub for their understanding on such an important decision being made. I trust that you will all see the benefits in taking this decision, and that while there will be a period of disruption, that there will be a better facility for community use at the end of this process. Finally, I'd like to touch on the words of Education Scotland as contained within the report appendices. Agreeing to bring the Inclusion Wellbeing Service into the Dawson Centre as their new home holds clear educational benefits. As with every decision in our education services, the outcomes, wellbeing and education of our children and young people are at the very centre of this decision. Moving the service from its current home in Lauriston to its new home in Langleys is absolutely the right decision, and I have no doubt that it will lead to a better learning experience and environment for all of our learners. It represents a commitment to improve where we can, whilst keeping a much loved facility that has been and will continue to be the very heart of community going forward. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you, Councillor Sinclair. Councillor Rice.
Thank you, Convener. I would like to formally second and thank Councillor Sinclair for his usual diligent work on education matters.
Thank you. I will now go to Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Convener. I didn't have any questions because I have been in the position of having had officers advise me at different stages, and I'm quite happy with the issues that are going on. I also had a visit to the Lauriston campus and very impressed by what the staff there are doing under really less than perfect circumstances. So I'm happy with the proposal that's been put forward here and look forward to further updates as progress is made.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah. Councillor Kerr.
No comments.
Councillor Spears.
No comment.
Councillor Murtagh.
I have no amendment, but having been to the Dawson Centre many occasions, I think it's probably the place I've met many people in this room for the first time, and happy and sad occasions over the years. I can understand the community's concern. We'd like to note that I think the officers have done a lot of work in briefing members, and perhaps there'd be more questions if it hadn't been for that. But I think it's a good proposal, and it will be a positive way forward for everybody involved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Buchanan, have you any comment?
No comment, Convener. Thank you.
Okay. On that, are we happy to agree the report?
Agreed.
Thank you for that, colleagues. We do have a request in the next item, which is in relation to the Gaelic medium education in Falkirk schools for a deputation. Can I first ask if we are content to hear that deputation?
Yes, indeed.
Thank you. Before I move on to the deputation and introduce them, I just thought it maybe be helpful if Councillor Sinclair could perhaps detail the motion and the amendment situation, because we did have both, and whether or not there's been the ability to reach a consensus.
Thank you, Convener. First of all, I'd like to thank colleagues across the way for their forbearance on this one, and also in an approach that has seen us hopefully be able to come to an agreement on this. There is an amendment which will be circulated. I've already passed it to officers. I'm happy to read that out at this point if required, if that would be helpful. Or
I think that may be helpful so that the folks in the public gallery are able to hear and see that, because I appreciate the work that's been ongoing just this morning, and I think it may be helpful to the deputation to be aware of that as they come forward.
Okay, so in terms of the wider report, this is simply discussing the transport element of the proposals in front of us. So the wording of this amendment is as follows. Agree to continue to fund the transport costs for children who have already begun their education in GME, whilst noting that there are presently no placing requests for new primary one entrants to GME from August 2025. Agree to review the future provision of school transport to any new pupils wishing to access GME out with the authority in conjunction with its planned development of the next Gaelic language plan, which is due for renewal in 2025, and agree in consultation with existing service users to explore more cost-effective ways of accessing transport provision for existing GME pupils, including looking at examples in other authorities and any opportunities for increasing use of government funding streams. I hope that's helpful, and thanks again to colleagues.
Okay, Councillor Murtagh, you were the amendment. I just wonder if you can confirm that you're content with the alternative wording.
Yeah, as Councillor Sinclair says, I'm content having adopted some of the wording in my amendment that I'm happy to withdraw my amendment to make that one substantive motion.
Okay, thank you, and you'll have an opportunity to speak further on. Okay, officers will hand that out.
Just want to hand out, it was just while that's been handed out, I know we had the sound discussion. There is a little bit of an echo today. I'm not going to risk much Gaelic, but I think I would say bringing this slow to get if we could have it. If people could speak slightly slower, it might be easier. I know what Councillor Sinclair was saying, but because it was delivered fast, it was quite difficult. I don't know if there is anything we can do about the sound, but it's just really quite challenging.
Councillor Buchanan, could you put yourself on mute? I do appreciate, and I have to say, I hear it's difficult hearing yourself, Councillor Murtagh, when you're speaking.
Apologies.
That's okay, Councillor Buchanan. Could I ask, maybe when you speak, you maybe slow down a little bit?
Yeah, that's what I was saying exactly. Yeah, I think so I'll try and speak slower, but yeah, I couldn't hear what Councillor Sinclair was saying particularly.
Convener, with your indulgence, I will apologise for speaking too quickly. As ever, in any public speaking circumstances, my nerves may be slightly shot to pieces, so I will do my best to allow a more understanding tone. Thank you.
And I will ask for members' indulgence just to speak a little bit slower so that we can hear, and similarly the message to those that are about to come up and speak, just so that they can be heard. Councillor Spears.
Just to say that this subject comes up at every meeting we hold in here, and very little seems to be actually being addressed to sort the problem out. Is there any updates on when we might be able to get earphones that we can plug into these units, or the sound can be improved?
There is work ongoing to look to address the issue. It's not something that can be done just overnight, but officers are taking that forward as quickly as they possibly can, because they recognise that what we're coping with is suboptimal. But if we can just give it a bit of time for officers to be able to come up with the appropriate solutions, it would be appreciated.
Can we press them on a date for that? Because we hear this every week, that they're looking into it, and looking into it isn't making us hear any better.
Okay, Mr. Murray, I don't know whether you can give a fixed date on this, but
I can't give a fixed date, but suffice to say I hear what members are saying in relation to the matter.
Okay, we have two deputations here. We have Jonathan Duke and his daughter Isla. Isla is going to be speaking to us today. We also have Nicholas Smith, Area Smith, and Aidan Leyden Howitt, who are also with us. I don't know quite who's going to be speaking from that, but if I can ask those that are going to be speaking to come forward, and you have up to 10 minutes if it's on the same points. I will give a little bit of levity on the time if the points are different, and then there'll be the opportunity for questions, but please come up. Okay, whoever's going to speak first, if you'd just like to introduce yourself, and then you can begin.
Good morning. My name is Alison Fraser. I'm a parent of 2 children who will be affected by this decision today. So, sorry, I'm quite nervous, so I'll do my best. I'm here to just tell you a little bit about these 2 children. They've both been in Gaelic medium education since the age of 3 when they started nursery. It was complete immersion in the language. That's how the Gaelic medium works. From primary 1 until primary 4. At that point, they start to introduce English into their curriculum. So this means that they've been with all of the classmates since the age of 3. My son is 14. He's in S3 in Greenfields High School. Next year, he'll be starting his exams, his first set of exams. The result of the removal of that transport would be moving to his local school. The school doesn't offer Gaelic in any capacity, even as a language. And for us, this poses an immediate problem because he should be sitting his Gaelic exam next year and then subsequently his higher and advanced higher in the future. And I find it difficult to see how this would be possible in a school which can't offer the study support that's required. My bigger concern, though, is the mental impact this is going to have on these children. It's a critical time in the education journey. He's going to need to replace subjects that he possibly can't take at the new school with brand new ones, with only a year to study for exams for National 5s. And I think the biggest concern is the ability to fit in at a new school at this critical age. Friendships have been established for many, many years, and it's going to be very difficult for them to establish new friendships at this time. My daughter's 11. She's just finishing her primary school journey, so she's starting the transition events to the high school. She's she's getting some lessons from the Gaelic medium teachers who are coming into the school at the moment from the high school, and she'll be starting visits to the high school in the coming weeks to enable the students to learn their way around the school and to familiarise themselves with the surroundings. She's obviously very nervous about starting high school, but she'll have her friends with her and she'll be familiar with the surroundings that she'll be going to. If the transport funding is removed, she can't really go through a transition process to a school that she can't attend. So we're not quite sure what she will do. The report suggests that the children would be able to take a bus to school. And when I looked into the Appendix 1, it suggests my children being in the Larbert area would actually need to get at least 2 buses to school. The routes suggested would take them over an hour with a 40-minute walk to the bus stop to actually catch the first bus to school. They'll be leaving the house around 7:30 a.m. and probably not getting home until after 5:30 p.m. So in reality, this can't happen. They would move to their local school. That's really all I had to say about this. Sorry if I've kind of not been very clear. And I'd just like people to consider those points. And thank you for your time.
Thank you for that. And yes, you were very clear. And it was well done. Yeah, I think we're going to move on to Isla now.
Good morning. My name's Isla Duke. I'm 16 years old and I attend Greenfield High School in Cumbernauld, and I will translate this when I'm finished. Ba bhí léig I bhfodach acu agus a fleannaigh Gaelic ar an lárach lín na cóirde, ha cotach go bhfuil se pás drá chéile nó go bhfuil bic an díteach se acu na hanan film tra bhí na Gaelic. Lic na mín se gaibh. Chanelwch gywnsach i na Gaelic a hynnain, sé bocach a hawn an y ffilm tra fi na Gaelic fan hiad blas y fynsgol, agus hasin y janafar gywnsach i gyreir an y Gaelic agus y lentyn sy'n yr ers yn arsgol. Sé rwyd gyturid yr Gaelic tre a han Gaelic dolwch gywnsach i, a sio'r san sgolderin a ha gywnsach i na Gaelic mar chanan eile. Han de buanach gan fo fi gywnsach i tra chanan eile yn fyr chwarig le fianish agus sy'n ungin hyfryn a haig ma farant yn slia gywnsach i sio, go hi negus mo vrahid. Ag every gevallig akif tar ualdachir son parentin agus immekin gose agus dom charachin. Ha mo vrahid vi an artran eiche gan you seke je hadol hachersga. Ha mi hien gewe toshig sin chief bliana en avliana agus ha glar akim dis mention gein maar ha le diachin in opperskolde tuien gusperin agus tuien alhai as soonish in ualdige warach besposho. An excuse gilaurir ar a fylld am dram Covid a chas tashe vir son barach excuse Januar. Hashe vi graag gyfil na mollion seo an gus ericet a halwch a chaneel sif Johnach brin mi choreitchig lear parentin. Bring ga unwas gar torst ulle dan vunskol agus nushin bring genje koshach gan arskol. Agus hanarif je gericet a hashiv a garisher son na koskishin shul kar anabrach. Cydioch chaimach fo chiwngyr it's 90 mil not y dyrach I gaif gus mynich ag atarst do chol do skolin yn ffilm tra fi na Gaelic. Chanio fachol mynd sio sa feber acif. Chiad bla chiad genelioch chosig rialtas na halp y proses a cwchorach a ffilm tra fi na Gaelic agus hai siot y gyfil sif a fiach yn sio ffwtach gloria mynd teid a chwchorach a chwglwnig. Chad y gafach chwchorach acuf yn nuri ysdiach gynjyn y tiolachin ag sgolarin an y ffilm tra fi na Gaelic yn draste, agus ham I jan fiach gan drain sif glefig gus na fwnchin je ffilm tra fi na Gaelic. Y frosnach ag a chynnyf le farantin ag yn ro an y ffilm tra fi na Gaelic. Se biach gorach agus gan kiel a hawn gynnyrring gain arionsach ag chymol a dal tro isgol ach chanel sios son ach nasin te kooi is art ide son Gaelic is chanel is son art ide urtach. Maar de geenses ar teacher in gaif se gyrris imsachie han a heetje glachgeig nur a ha skollen no teacher in farne skolle gaan naam maar teacher uur. Gaan naam gierig gan torriger model an glosit dan skol uur ach visin naar koik kriegen bruin in skol sin lis kan begakin ri imsachie naar neuner a sunnish teacher. Haar ranzig ik jervig geveel onziger leine a gevrig jalchig vo film an immig scholarin. Se prentasach an een clown agus oikri son scholarin a gionsig trovien na Gaelic ungenne gusperin hamir tuig son a vleene regien agus gejerrig havig sin komisach ag skols Nicholas Brieg. An peperakif son na kanjuf seo a janif mach na garrison son na Gaelic at Greenfields makulor agus ha seo a janif mi herivish dar hitcherin is an rein Gaelic agin. Bhí sibh an liste de chusperin an an postí bhór parentin agus comment na parent náisiúnta ein. Bhil sibh gan burin géin a bhas ein go cumann an alt trás a bhatain ach chai fáiseach nach de chuid sibh ar chláin an aman an sibh sin cúideach chatug sibh an arin na gan bích féim ag a bhór chuid géin imig bas ein is gan bích acin fuireach son uniufata ag táiseach is dír in lá. A aberst an an film fai cearste son gach scolir. Chanil mé farach gan gohfuil ara bhí táist an seo. A sibh gar leibseach hén mar gur ddíirech arabhan is figurin a haning a náte daine. Mar ruchgurin ölum chanil go leor cuarach gin acah gain agus dí ara acah son ar sláinte is súnt. As je er wie le mi uurmach door Farrington confused frikkers en push die achte. Gaan je dierig scholen aan Greenfields, kan door het als een bruin Gaelic gehari, je kors nog gehaan, je toskere Gaelic is in mijn hand leden, kun je klassieken en das oike zijn Zureichke. Wie je een kursjach filmchen door harpisch film die gachvliene, als ranik zien en kursje nog een rie. Wie me hines leden een gelijk aan een colin tradition te le ar carrigen, a ga je steeglijk zijn school, als wie je een ruggekik na scholen, kurmen kiel. Wie targain a shine like kosherop na hiklis brichke agus hashin er servig immerig turis harnam blianichen a ruchigig na hiklis brich like a kosher agus lein heen ek wat naschen te riel agus getrich bi a kosher a fein kurien gus shine kurmen na a heile vanri launa katu an dal vilas an nudje chaim a heug gus baarstach jarisch gies a gaelig. Ha kus vrieken agus gifir gies a feper aku Agus a torste seach an éri an kieschen chorle ag a vidget an seach gin schai ha me kur een piolus mint in a riest min amalian seo is gin torsiv rein an corm filled an blaen unje chriech na heich san seiskin a hakin me ra leir call a munich ag gerst moor an tank. From reading your proposal on the Gaelic language plan on the council website, it seems that you're still confused about what Gaelic medium education actually is. We are not Gaelic learners. Gaelic medium education is full immersion from day one of primary school, and we do all of our learning in Gaelic and continue with this at high school. A Gaelic learner is someone who's learning the language as another language. The benefits of learning through another language are well documented, and this is one of the reasons why my parents chose this learning path for myself and my brother. This proposal has caused a great deal of stress to our parents and a great deal of anxiety to myself and my friends. My brother has been up at night wondering what's going to happen to him. I'm going into S6 next year and I have enough to think about with exams, coursework, option choices and university applications without the added stress of this. Our education was disrupted enough through COVID, but still we're adding further disruption. You say that these proposals are to save money, yet you're not willing to discuss a compromise with the parents by not responding to emails. One bus could take all of us to Condor Primary and we could walk to the high school from there. The amount that is being quoted for transport seems excessive, and also recently an additional 19,000 has been allocated to fund transport for GME pupils. There is no mention of this in the paper. On the 21st of January, the Scottish Government announced a consultation process regarding GME education, and it seems underhanded that this is trying to be pushed through before the consultation has been concluded. Your consultation last year did not include any of the families of current GME pupils, and I believe you did little to promote the benefits of GME education at the meeting with prospective parents for GME education in Falkirk. The idea that we could continue our studies through eSchool is unachievable, and it's only free for Nat 5 and higher Gaelic. And as our teachers will tell you, it's a learning resource and not to be used when a teacher or pupil is off school, not as a replacement for a teacher. Your proposal would not only make us move to a different school, but then be alienated within the new school, as we would have to learn alone without the assistance of a Gaelic teacher. And the studies have proved that online learning leads to disengagement in a great many pupils. One of the courses that I have chosen is a foundation apprenticeship in early years Gaelic education, and this would certainly not be possible within a Falkirk school. And in my local school, even some of the English subjects like advanced art music are not available. So it's not just the Gaelic subjects that would not be available if moving school. And your paper for this meeting suggests that the Gaelic provision at Greenfields is not adequate, which does disservice to our teachers and our Gaelic department especially. And you will have received a list of subjects and emails that our parents and Common and Parent National have sent you of what is available at Greenfields. You suggest that we could get the bus to Cumbernauld, but clearly have not looked at the timings for the services or the fact that most of us will need to get multiple buses or spend long periods hanging about at either end of the day. There is a mantra within education, getting it right for every child, and I do not feel that this has been taken into consideration. You're treating us like statistics rather than human beings, and as representatives for education, you've had little empathy for us and our well-being, and have been disrespectful to our parents when not replying to emails. Greenfields and Kindora and the Gaelic department specifically are not just a school to us, it's a community. Liaison is ambassador for Gaelic and Shinty, helping younger classes in her spare time and teaching Shinty to children at Condorit. And we entered the Film G competition and reached the finals last year. Liaison and I play in a trad band which was formed in the school, and we represent the school at various functions. Several of us sing with Falkirk Junior Gaelic Choir, and we have gained many successes representing Falkirk over the years with the choir and individually at the Royal National Mod, and the choir are regularly invited to sing at functions. When the Queen visited North Lanarkshire in 2019, I was chosen to recite a Gaelic poem for her, and none of these opportunities would have been available to me if I had not had Gaelic medium education. There are many inaccuracies and information missing from your paper. Considering the increase in council tax last week, I urge you to reconsider these proposals and allow us to finish our full-time education in our present settings with transport fully funded. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Isla. You did very well there. Thank you. I will now open it up for members to ask questions to the deputation, if there are any.
Sorry, convener, was
Councillor Murtagh?
Is there not another deputy? Do you want to say, you okay? I just wanted to double check.
No, there was only 2 people as indicated they were going to speak, but it's there for support. Have you got a question?
Yeah, I do have a question, and happily, Leila Rashin really great to hear. You give your case.
Laura, I hear you because you've done it.
Right. Okay.
We can't leverage.
I'll take my own advice and try to speak slowly. As I said, that was really fantastic to hear your case, and also to hear Gaelic spoken in the chamber to such an extent is really welcome, and you all did really well, and everybody in the committee is really pleased to hear your case that you've made. You talked about the curriculum that you have at Green Falls, and you made a really robust defence of that, and I could hear the passion you have for that. Can you tell us a bit about what it is you're going on to study next year or this year, and why that's very different to what you feel is on offer? Some of the examples, can you do that?
With the foundation apprenticeship in early years Gaelic education that I have chosen to do next year, it would involve cooperation with Salmarostic, the university, the Gaelic University on the Isle of Skye, through Zoom, which is organised through the school. And I would get placement hours in Condorit Primary, working with the children there, so it would be very hands-on, and I would get the experience of actually being in an education setting rather than just sitting in a room and learning there. I would get to have the immersion of being in the primary school and working with the younger years there.
Happily. So I'd say also to parents, because you mentioned yourself about the consultation, well, there being no consultation and the stress of not being able to know what was happening. I don't know if it's a question also from a parental point of view, because obviously I've had a lot of discussions with the parents, and all seem to be saying that they'd be very willing to come to some sort of compromise or find a way to reduce costs, and that you very much acknowledge that if there is an opportunity to reduce costs, that you'd be happy to discuss potential. Is that the case? Is that how the families feel, that they would be happy to do that?
Yeah, I think that is true. We've always been just provided with a taxi service. We were surprised at this. We thought it would be a bus service, like a traditional kind of a school bus, and the children would just walk to as other children do, to a safe, reasonable distance to a bus stop and then be transported. And so clearly we would be more than willing, I think, as a whole group, I think I can speak and say that we would be very willing to explore other options for reducing costs.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, thank you. I have Gemma, Bailey Kerr and Councillor Patterson. Gemma, you wanted to ask?
Yep. Thank you so much for coming along to do this today. I'm quite proud that you've got the confidence to come and do this, and it's lovely hearing Gaelic spoken. And I wish it was my first language, but unfortunately I'm not lucky enough. But I was This is kind of a question a little bit to the room of, I'm wondering, because hearing you all speak today and from conversations in Falkirk Champions Board, who I represent last night, we'd love to keep Gaelic going. We would love that young people in Falkirk get the opportunity to learn Gaelic and in such an incredible environment as well, where it's in everything and it's not just a class like French, it's not just a class like Spanish, although they're nice. But we were wondering at all if there's any way that we could maintain that the young people learn Gaelic where they're happy to learn currently, while also building some sort of version of that in Falkirk, so that young people here who aren't being transported could then learn, as well as the young people who are getting transported not getting disrupted in their learning. Like, we're wondering if that's at all possible, a balance of both transporting young people and setting up what, hopefully something as good as that in our own area. It also might, having it in our own area also might encourage more young people to learn Gaelic, and that'll help the language survive, as it's currently endangered as listed by UNESCO and the Endangered Languages Project. So that's my question.
Okay, Gemma, I think that's probably more appropriate to go to officers, and we'll deal with that when we move into the next session. At the moment, it's only questions to the deputation, but we won't forget that one, and we'll deal with that then. Okay, Bailey Kerr.
Thanks, Convener. I don't know if it's prudent at this time to ask this question because they've just seen the amendment, but how does the amendment proposal be different from what you were first in the report? Will it help? Does it help? Or does it give you any comfort? To be fair, I've not seen it yet, so because it's not been circulated.
It has been circulated. I don't know whether you've been missed out. Apologies if you have, but Jim circulated just a wee while ago at the start of the item.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt there, Convener. I'm not sure it's been circulated via email for those joining online.
Apologies, Councillor Patterson. That has appeared to be missed. That'll be circulated directly.
Can I ask if we can get a copy of the full amendment with adjustments?
You have. That was the paper that was circulated by Jim. I don't know whether you've had the opportunity to digest, and I know that there's been information shared already, but I don't know if you're in a position to be able to make comment on that.
I have seen the amendment, and it definitely appears to be a very reasonable kind of compromise to us anyway. It seems to be allowing the children that are already in the system to finish their education, whilst already, as well as looking at trying to establish something within the Falkirk area, at the same time for future generations to learn and not have to be transported, therefore eventually eliminating the cost to transport anybody anywhere.
Thanks very much, and I know you're a bit nervous, but you've both done very well. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. My question was in a similar vein to what Bailey Kerr's just asked there, and I appreciate that, you know, there's been quite a few moving parts, so maybe our deputations can't fully digest and comment on it. So I think that my question's been as satisfied as it could be at this point.
Okay, thank you for that. Any further questions to the deputation at this stage? No? Okay. Okay, can I thank you very much? I really appreciate your presentations, and everybody spoke very well, and thank you very much for coming along today.
Thank you.
Okay, colleagues, Gemma got in first with questions, so I'll maybe go to John first for questions, and then I'll open it up for everybody else to answer Gemma's.
Thank you, conveners. Thank you, Gemma, for your question. That's exactly what the proposal is about. The proposal is in two parts. One is about strengthening the Gaelic language learning. I completely understand the difference between that and Gaelic medium education, which we're not able to offer at the moment. But the idea is to strengthen the offer we have both in our primary and our secondary schools, to extend the offer of the language to as many pupils who want to take it up as possible, and working within early years and primary particularly with the overall aim in the next few years of establishing our own GME provision.
Okay, thank you for that, John. I'll now open it up. Councillor Sinclair?
Yeah. First of all, thanks, Gemma. You kind of got there before me. On the proposal itself, I think what I'd like to hear a bit more about, because there was some information there in terms of funding, and I think over the past couple of weeks there's been information come out from the Scottish Government that I'm not fully clear on, and I know that officers, particularly I think Amanda, might be able to expand on that. If you could expand on that, please.
Thank you, convener. Thank you, Councillor Sinclair. So there has been reference to £19,000 of funding, and it was, sorry. So there has been reference to that funding, and so I just maybe wanted to clarify that a little bit if I could. So where that comes from is that the council gets funding from Scottish Government, and there's 133 different indicators that are used to allocate that funding. And the Scottish Government website is very clear that those amounts are not spending targets, they are just a mechanism to divide up funding. And the Scottish Government website is really clear that in these cases where it's a general revenue grant, the decisions are for local circumstances, they're dependent on local need, and that the amounts distributed are not expected to be spent on those specific areas. And that, if you think about it, is the way it has to work, because otherwise every year we'd be making big adjustments to how we deliver all of our services based on whatever that grant indicator says. So I mentioned there's 133 indicators. One of those indicators is a pupil dispersion indicator, so that's just one of the 33. And then within that pupil dispersion indicator, part of that relates to Gaelic medium transport. So 19,000 is the result of the change in our indicator for those children that have Gaelic medium transport. So that can fluctuate each year, and it's just one part of that pupil dispersion indicator. So as I said, it's important to note that the Scottish Government website are clear that this isn't an allocation to Gaelic transport. I think the other things I would just flag is that we wouldn't normally know that level of detail or information as part of all the tables and all the information we get. We don't get the breakdown of the pupil dispersion indicators. We have asked for it because of the reference to the 19,000 that we're trying to understand. And I think that just further underlines that point that it's not an allocation to that particular area. It's just a methodology or part of a methodology for allocating funding. And then the other point, 2 points I'd make briefly. One is that the overall school transport funding for the council reduced by 37,000 this year, so that was a reduction of 2.8%. and also in terms of specific funding, which is ring-fenced for Gaelic education, we got a grant of £13,000. And that is what to be spent on Gaelic education. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's obviously very, very technical, but thank you for that answer. It maybe clears it up as much as you can clear up mud as you can.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Sinclair. Councillor Spears.
Thank you. A couple of questions for education. Can everybody hear okay? Right, thank you. Very pleased to see this amendment come forward, especially regarding our kids getting to school safely, but I think that's a prerequisite of everyone. Can I ask, we see very little advertising for this school, for this choice for parents, for education. And I noticed that there is no placement requests for the new primary one entrance. That's concerning. It's concerning for the future of the school. And it's also concerning for the future of the language. Can I ask why we are never really updated much on the school, us that are here on the Education Executive, and how this is portrayed as a choice, a placement choice for other parents throughout the district?
Thank you. In terms of no placement requests as yet, the placement requests come in from the other authorities or from the parents in terms of transport, so they go direct to either North Lanarkshire or Stirling, and their placement requests that can be accepted up until March. So for the August 2025 cohort, we wouldn't actually know those numbers as yet unless parents have already came forward to indicate that they'd be looking to go. For children in terms of preschool and the children we've been, or the parents that we've been working with over the past few months, we wrote to all parents of 4-year-olds within Falkirk to ask them to participate, to give us information as to whether they would like to take part and like to see Gaelic medium education within Falkirk. Out of those that responded, 22 indicated they would be in favour of that. And we then had further communication with them and invited them to a meeting, which 2 who were eligible came along, but then decided that they didn't want to go further than they wanted to go to their local school. But we're still in favour of looking at Gaelic learning and what could be offered, and so that was part of the discussion we had. We did also share with them the benefits of Gaelic medium education and how important it was, not just for their education, but also for that cultural entitlement and the fact that it was a recognised and protected language within Scotland as well.
So you would say the concerns about transport to the schools may be affecting the placements?
We wouldn't have that detail as yet because the placement request could have been put in between any time in January and December when parents would be going forward with placement requests. So we don't have that information as to whether this paper has impacted as yet within future placement requests.
Sorry, I didn't get most of that with the echo.
Could you maybe just repeat that, Gillian, please?
Sorry, Councillor Spears, hopefully this is a bit better. Because of the process for the placement requests, we wouldn't know that information as yet as to whether the paper has had an impact on potential placement requests. Normally, from the numbers that we have each year, we tend to have 1 or 2. Sometimes we have no years of children opting for Gaelic medium education. So it does fluctuate each year.
That's the point I'm making. Do all parents know that there's that option? I never see it advertised or any information is not dispersed to ourselves here on the Education Executive.
That's part of the work that we're going to be doing also, and trying to grow Gaelic medium education. Gaelic options have been within Falkirk for a number of years, but I will say that the future of what's happening is very favourable for Gaelic and Falkirk in terms of how we're looking to grow it. The support that we're getting as officers to take it forward now as well is quite promising, and also the funding that we're looking to apply for to then grow those Gaelic options. So part of the offer for those to go out with Falkirk and those potentially to have Gaelic medium education in Falkirk, hopefully people will start to see that much more prominent and visible within the options and within their community.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Murtagh.
Thanks, convener, and my questions are for Gail and for John. We heard from the deputation about the impact this has had on the uncertainty it's had on their families, not knowing what might happen next year. I'm not going to go back over the arguments or the discussions we had last week about lack of consultation and the EPIAs, although those also apply to this proposal. I think can it be acknowledged perhaps though that this could have been done better in terms of bringing this forward, and that in the amendment that consultation with parents and children themselves will be key to finding solutions here?
Thank you, Councillor Murtagh. I mean, I think any impact on young people as a result of a proposed change is regrettable. Absolutely. As we wrote to all of the, I mean, obviously the parents of current pupils who are receiving GME were informed prior to the publication of the report. The publication was then delayed, and we included in the report that's before you today the main concerns, and we have tried to put mitigations in place to address those concerns. But any impact on a young person as a result of a proposed change is obviously very, very regrettable. What we've indicated to parents is there's a number of different mechanisms by which to receive support through that process, as would be the case in any Falkirk school. And the first step to receive that support would be through pupil support within the respective schools, who would be able to provide advice and support. But certainly as a result of the amendment, and it's clearly stated, we will be engaging with the families to make sure that any change is minimised and that we come to a cost-effective solution for providing the transport that the council is suggesting.
Thank you for that answer. I think I would have a lot of questions had we not come to, I think, what is a reasonable compromise, and I will take them up offline. However, I want to ask you about the letter that we received from Bord Gaelic on, I think it was on Tuesday, forgive me if it's like earlier in the week. And in that letter, they very clearly state that they do not support these proposals in the paper, and that they point out that that would be in breach of our Gaelic language plan. And I think, would you acknowledge that we are in breach of our Gaelic language plan in a number of areas? And that in the development of our new Gaelic language plan, which should build on this Gaelic language plan, that those matters will have to be addressed?
I think the Gaelic language plan is not just about education, it's council-wide, and obviously education, and Gail Martin in particular, our education support officer, will be responsible for pulling that together, and it will go out to a period of consultation, so everybody will be able to comment on what's in the plan. I think want to make it really clear that the proposal had no intention to stop young people continuing in secondary. In primary, it was very clear that the transport would continue, and in secondary, there was no intention to stop young people continuing with their GME. What was under consideration was the discretionary travel that's not statutory, and we're not required to provide the travel, and that's what we're addressing today with the amendment. The letter from the board, which we did receive this week, is not in favour of the proposal because of the impact on transport, but the board have acknowledged that the transport budget is the council's budget and it's therefore up to them how that budget would be allocated. And we'll be working very closely with the board and other partners as we develop the education plans for the new hubs and the Gaelic language learning programmes and the offer across our secondary schools for accreditation. So that will be part of it as well.
Thank you. I'm reading the letter from the board here, and although they are critical of the transport element, I'm not sure that it's. I would personally characterise that that's the only thing that they're not happy with in the proposals. They're certainly not happy about the impact, but I think what they're saying is that they're not happy with the proposal in the paper overall. On the development of our new Gaelic language plan and the potential for, as we've all agreed, finding a better way for all our learners who want to learn in any way that they wish to. The Scottish Languages Bill is currently sitting at stage 3 in the Parliament, and that's not passed, but there are principles within it that have been agreed and stated by Parliament. Any development of our Gaelic language plan and our Gaelic learners plans would be taking cognizance of that major piece of legislation, I take it then.
Thank you. Yes, of course, and we will be in a similar position to every other local authority and public body that creates a Gaelic language plan, that the Scottish Languages Bill, when it does become an act, will mean that there may have to be amendments, or for those of us that are in the middle of writing, have to take that into account. It is not an act as yet, and there's obviously, as most people will be aware, quite lengthy discussions that are happening at Scottish Government level on the proposals, and we would comply with that when it becomes an act, but we are also taking it into consideration at this stage so that hopefully then we don't have to make further amendments when our plan is passed.
Okay, and I think finally, although I will take matters up offline on other issues, I think you said it was June, the end of June is when the current plan expires. Can you give some outline of the timetable in terms of, from a domestic democratic point of view, obviously it has to be consulted on, what is the timetable for that to come to consultation and final decision in elected members and then go to Bordna Gaelic for approval?
It will go to elected members in May. That would then allow us time to go for at least a 6 weeks consultation with the public, and we would also share it with our local Gaelic organisations and national organisations as well for the final submission that is due to Bordna Gaelic in July. But they have got a new system in place that allows us to put in a soft application just to make sure, and that's part of the dialogue that we would be having constantly with them, to make sure that what we are proposing is what they would be in favour of and meets the legal requirements that are set out within the plan as well, and as part of the potential new act.
Happily.
Okay, thank you. Bailey Kerr.
Thanks, Convener. And I know that face-to-face learning is best. However, as a local authority, we've invested a lot of money in our digital learning. And picking up a wee bit from the deputation, is there any part of the Gaelic curricula that could be done online?
Thank you, Bailey Kerr. Yeah, as you know, as part of the Connected Falkirk programme, we have a programme of virtual learning, an offer of virtual learning, as most councils do, across a broad range of subjects. Currently this year we are offering 11 subjects to young people in Falkirk that would otherwise not be possible to run those classes in the individual schools. Now, our staff are well versed and well trained in delivering like that, and the results we see from the pupils who take part in that are very good. They're very strong. So I have no concern about learning that is delivered through virtual means. We also have open to us in Falkirk our consortia arrangements, where if a subject is not available in a school, and I think the reference was made to advanced higher music earlier, that would be delivered and is possible to deliver that by the pupil attending that school in order to get that. And then finally, what we are aiming to do for August 2025 is to work with East Goyle as a national learning partner who will be able to deliver virtually, initially, qualifications in Gaelic at National 5 and higher level. Now, that's free of charge for Falkirk. There are other areas and subjects that we would explore if we get to the point further down the line, the other subjects that could be delivered in Gaelic, but that would come at a cost, and that would be dependent on the level of resourcing that we receive and the Gaelic specific grant from the Scottish Government.
Thank you. And I probably should have asked this question to the deputation. Obviously, the pupils didn't go to our local authority. So how did they manage? Because I caught a wee bit about the COVID. How did they manage through COVID? Because obviously our pupils, most of it was done digitally.
I think every local authority made sure that they were providing appropriate learning during COVID for the young people in their care.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. I see no further. Oh, beg your pardon, Councillor Patterson. Do you want to ask another question? No. All right. Okay. It's not a hand. Apologies. It's Colin's eyesight. He says. I'm glad he's taking the blame for that one and not me. If there are no further questions, we'll move to the report, and I'll go to Councillor Sinclair to move the report with the amended motion.
Thank you, Convener. I think I just want to put it on the record how wonderful it was to hear Gaelic spoken in this chamber. It's something that doesn't happen as often as it should, and I very much hope that we can hear it more often, but in different circumstances. So thank you very much for that. So firstly, on a personal note, it is a source of significant regret that I only have a few basic phrases in Gaelic. I have on many occasions attempted to learn, whether that's through the local and class or by using the popular, if passive-aggressive Duolingo owl to help me understand a language that can be found in every corner of Scotland, whether people are aware of it or not. The report today has been brought before us as a result of the work of officers who are continuing to do incredibly important and valuable work under extremely trying circumstances. This is not an easy task, especially given the enormity of the financial challenge before us, but I want to give my thanks to officers for their forbearance and guidance throughout this reporting period, and for their continued support to me as portfolio holder and to us all as elected members. Turning to the report itself. Part of this report has been a source of frustration for many people, not least those who stood to be impacted by the removal of discretionary transport provision, which allows pupils to access Gaelic medium education in North Lanarkshire and Stirling Council schools. I appreciate that this has not been the easiest of times, and I fully understand the anxiety and frustration that people will have felt. There has been some complexity following questions to the Scottish Government surrounding funding, and we have heard this morning that the picture was unclear until the Government provided further detailed information on the breakdown of those funding lines. I'll admit that this was frustrating to me, as it was only after this information was provided in Parliament that our officers became aware and had to ask for clarification from the Scottish Government. It is therefore fully understandable that the public can often be frustrated at the complexity of government funding, especially on a local level, when the finer details can even be unclear for our officers, let alone elected members or the public. I'd like to thank everybody who has been in contact with me and other elected members on this matter. That includes parents who are here today, Common Them Parent and Bordna Gaelic. The information provided has undoubtedly allowed us to ask questions and consider the concerns that have been raised, and ultimately led me to consider an alternative approach to that which has been proposed. I'm pleased to say that we have a consensus on this committee this morning, which I am grateful for, to remove the proposal to end transport provision in August, whilst asking officers to engage with current service users to identify more cost-effective routes to getting our GME children and young people to their place of learning. However, what I believe is a genuinely exciting prospect for education in the Falkirk Council area is the work that will continue to bring Gaelic language learning hubs to schools across the district, while opening up qualification learning through eSchool to a wider audience in Falkirk schools. We have a significant number of talented linguists in our secondary schools, and having spoken to some of them, they would relish the opportunity to learn Gaelic, and I very much welcome this move. It is not a substitute for Gaelic medium education, but I hope that developing these hubs and enhancing the promotion of Gaelic offering in the area that is a stepping stone to Falkirk finally being able to develop our own GME unit or school. Unfortunately, the topic of Gaelic has often been used as a political football, which is disappointing to say the least, and it disregards the identity of communities right across this country. However, I want to touch briefly on Gaelic in our wider community in Falkirk. I believe that working in partnership, we can continue to make progress on growing Gaelic in Falkirk. For example, building on the successes of Unclass Camlin or Unclass Gaelic, however you know it, who have grown from having 2 classes per week to 5, with a current cohort of 72 learners, half of them from the Falkirk area alone. Some of their alumni have gone on to teach GME, others now work in Gaelic media, and many of their learners have progressed from basic to advanced level learning. In 2008, the Royal National Mod, convened by former councillor in Falkirk East MSP Angus MacDonald, was brought to Falkirk for the very first time. Drawing on the historical connections between the Gaels from the Highlands travelling to the Trice cattle market, they chose the slogan, "The Mod is coming home," for the event. It's important that we don't forget that there is a Gaelic community that is a very important part of the great tapestry that makes up Falkirk District. Each thread in that tapestry represents a different community, and by removing or leaving out just one of those threads makes that picture incomplete. I trust that by agreeing to these amended proposals, that Falkirk Council reaffirms its commitment to Gaelic, the language, culture, and importantly, community, and that we are willing to work together to promote and enhance our current Gaelic offer and work further to protect a community and culture that is very much a part of our heritage and is absolutely worthwhile protecting. Tapa Life Convener.
Thank you, Councillor Sinclair. Councillor Devine?
Happy to second.
Thank you. And just to remind members, there is a consensus around the motion, therefore there's no debate, but there's an opportunity to say why you're supporting that. And I would ask the people to be mindful and not repeat everything that's been said already. I'll go to Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Convener. The question was asked earlier on, could this have been done better? And I think the answer is undoubtedly. But for all of us involved in this, every day is a learning experience, and I'm sure we will all learn in terms of bringing forward proposals in the future. I had conversations with yourself, Convener, and with Councillor Sinclair and Councillor Murtagh when these 2 amendments were brought forward. And I had the advantage of actually seeing the merged motion this morning before it came forward, and was happy to see that the two had been brought together, the 2 amendments had been brought together, that was possible, and produce a situation that looks like a win-win-win to me. It's a win for the pupils whose transport will continue. It's a win for the council in the sense that there will be a review in terms of making it more cost effective, and it'll be a win for everybody in terms of reviewing the Gaelic offering in the area. So in that situation, it would be rather strange if I was bringing forward another amendment. I do hope that all the parents, carers and pupils will see this approach as a positive solution in this instance and will engage with the council in the further discussions over improving the situation.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah. Bailey Kerr.
Thanks, Convener. Obviously, at the moment, this proposal as a personal thing doesn't affect me or my family, but receiving several emails and the people who are here today, obviously it means a lot to them. And if it's their right to have this, we should be supporting it. But looking at the amendment and the agreement between the parties, it seems to be that there's got to be an agreement that I hope everybody will benefit from it. And can I just say before I finish, after speaking to Councillor Sinclair on a couple of occasions, how passionate he is about the Gaelic language and how passionate he is to try and bring that education to the Falkirk area. And I'm quite happy to agree with the amendment.
Thank you, Bailey Kerr. Councillor Spears.
Very happy to agree with this amended amendment. Also pleased to hear from Education that we'll push forward and advertise in these schools, because we need to safeguard the security while ever mindful when we push forward to expand and to get more people involved in the school, that getting to school and school safety is of prime importance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spears. Councillor Murtagh.
Thanks, Convener. And obviously I did have an amendment, but I'm very pleased that we've been able to cooperate and find a way that is a constructive way forward, and that puts the principle that although, yes, the substantive things in this paper are about Gaelic, in the reality the proposals are about children, and that's what we've come to a consensus on today, is to ensure that there isn't that negative impact to our children, which I know is the priority of everybody in this chamber. So I am really pleased that we have been able to make these amendments and ensure that that priority is going forward. I do think that there will be matters to pick up offline in terms of the development of our Gaelic language plan, and also to reflect that our current Gaelic language plan in many aspects is not being followed, and that includes some of the statutory guidance, some of the recommendations within the statutory guidance actually about the promotion of the opportunities that parents should have to ask for review. And I think we can definitely do better there. And I understand that that's not everybody's priority, but it is important, if we have a plan, that we do follow that, and it is a statutory duty to do so. And I think what I would say is that within that plan, and the reason why I'm mentioning it, the parents that are here today and the children that were here today, it says within that plan that they would, while we do not have GME in this authority, they would be entitled to receive transport out with the authority, and that was their expectation. And I think that that's why it's important, the compromise we've come to, because it's a fair compromise. And while we will have a new plan, I think it was really important that those children had that future expectation met. So I will pick up the other matters offline, but I'm pleased that we've been able to come to this constructive consensus today, and I hope that the children and the parents themselves will appreciate the collaboration to get to this result. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murtagh. Bailey Buchanan, have you got any comment?
No, just happy to support the amendment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. In which case, are we all agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to the end of the education part of our agenda, so we'll have a short comfort break of around 10 minutes, and that will allow our visitors to leave and the staff to change over. Okay, colleagues, can we come back into the room, please? Moving on into our next section of the agenda, we have the corporate risk management, the quarterly update. This will be open to questions to officers to begin with. I will begin with a couple, and that will give others a chance to catch up and see what they wish to ask. The first one is obviously there's a lot of risks with limited assurance. And I'm just looking if officers could explain how we're able to seek reassurance and the work that's ongoing to meet the substantial and that will be an achievement that we will desire for the future. In that, because I think that there feels to be a bit of a backlog there when we look at the balance of what's green, what's amber, etc. So I don't know, Amanda, you want to take that one?
Thank you, convener. So I suppose there's sort of two general scenarios when we've got limited assurance. One is where we are undertaking some work to get to a targeted position, and so where we give a target date, that means that we're providing assurance that we are expecting to implement those effective controls by the target date. For some risks with limited assurance, that isn't a target date, and I suppose that's the two different options. There's one with a target date and one without a target date. Target date, we have actions to be undertaken. Without a target date, that may be because our action plans are still to be agreed by CMT, for example, so that takes into account, for example, the business continuity plan with the improvement plan due to go to CMT. But there's some risks that we can't give a target date to at this point in time, and the most obvious example of that is around financial sustainability, where we're making significant strides and working to try to get to a financially sustainable position, but we know we've still got a long way to go, and so that is one where we have a limited assurance. So I think the other example is around climate change, where we know that such significant resources are required to make the really big step change in climate change that at this point we can't set a target date for it. So I think we're constantly working on all of these risks. We're constantly working on the plans and strategies and actions that will help to deliver them and to improve the position. But I think some of them with limited assurance are sort of inherently limited at this point in time, albeit the council is undertaking significant work on them.
Okay, thank you for that. The other one I wanted to ask is around the time it's taken around the risk work in relation to gender-based violence. And I appreciate we had a staff vacancy and where it was March 24 that we had someone in post, but we're not expecting it to be implemented until after the review. So we're going to take us into 2026. That just feels a very long time away, but I just wondered if there was a bit more understanding that you could give into why that is a long period of time.
Yes, thank you, convener. And I think it's important just to note in the description on the risk there that the target date of 2026 relates to the moving of the assurance assessment. The plan is anticipated to be in place during 2025, but it's anticipated that we want the plan to be in place for a full 12 months so that we can assess that it's actually reducing the risk. I think the other important thing to note just on the timescale for producing the plan is the Gender-Based Violence Partnership is what it says. It's a partnership of organisations, so there are a number of different stakeholders who need to be brought to the table in relation to discuss the plan and its outcomes. So I think good progress is being made by the Gender-Based Violence Policy Officer and the independent chair of the Gender-Based Violence Partnership, but that's the broader context of why September 2026 is referred to.
Do you think that that's helpful, just to have that understanding about two very final, very quick questions? In Appendix 2, item number 3, it refers to the reviews to be completed by April 2025. I just want to ask, are these reviews on target? Sorry. It's in relation to the governance groups experts to provide minimum annual assurance reports, including progress with implementation of their strategies, managing risks and corporate risks assurance reviews to be undertaken where more assurance is needed. It's item 3 on Appendix 2.
Apologies, Convener, I can pick that one up. So, yes, we're on target. All of our governance groups as a minimum provide an annual assurance, and what we will do with that is to use that within our annual governance statement, which will come back to Audit Committee as part of the June accounts. So we would expect all the sort of subject experts in the governance groups to update us on the progress with implementing their strategies and risks at that point. And then we would include that in the annual governance statement. But at this point, we are on target to meet that April 2025 date.
And the final one relates again to Appendix 2, item 4. In the brief comments, it refers to the reviews aren't working well. Can you maybe give a wee bit more detail as to why the reviews aren't working well?
Thank you, Convener. So both of those areas, those references relate specifically to the Health and Social Care Partnership and to education services. So within the Health and Social Care Partnership, the Chief Financial Officer and the Chief Officer are taking their annual risk report to the IGB Assurance and Scrutiny Committee. And so there has been some discussion about resetting all the outstanding actions on the improvement plan, and they have been developing those kind of next steps. There has been some delay in implementing them, but as we know, there's been quite a lot of change in structure and things like that. So the management and governance reviews are being completed. So that work is happening this month. And so we would expect to see that process will bed in and that will start to operate a bit more smoothly. There's also some training, social work manager training sessions this month as well. So a lot of the improvements are really about getting consistency right across the service and trying to maybe simplify the risk review process a little bit and the assurance reporting, and looking at trying to reduce some of the reporting burden across all the partners. So all that work is happening within the Health and Social Care Partnership, and I think we are seeing that they are making a lot of progress.
And I'll bring in Kenny McNeill to provide a response for Children's Services.
Good morning, everyone, and through you, Chair. I'm pleased to say that the work through the senior leadership team in Children's Services is now progressing very well. We have risk survey and e-learning completed since the report was written. We have a new business management coordinator who was appointed in October 2024 and will present their work on risk management to the senior leadership team at the end of this month. In April, we plan further consultations inviting lead officers and managers to refine the risk descriptions and controls that support the corporate risk register and streamline our quarterly service risk reviews. Having spoken with council officers on this particular matter, we expect the process to stabilise by late Q2, early Q3 at the latest, and despite absences such like in the past, I'm confident that the improvements will be evident in upcoming reports due at the end of the month, early next month. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Convener. In Appendix 2.5, there's reference to the risk training, and rather concerningly, that completion rates of the online training are low amongst elected members. I wonder if you could give me an idea of how low and what action is being taken, because it does rather seem to me that as elected members who have to sign off on the corporate risk reports, we maybe should know what we're talking about.
Thank you, Kira. Thanks, Councillor Hannah. I don't have the number to hand. I can get that for you. I think we have been working over the last couple of years to try and consider how we sort of work better with the executive, particularly who are agreeing this report. And as you know, we had previously talked about, we set up sort of 2 sessions in advance of considering the report so that members could meet with officers, review the risks and have a better understanding of it. We did do some risk training. It was maybe a year or so ago now, maybe a bit longer. We didn't have that session in advance of today, just because of the challenges around budget and everyone's capacity to do that. But I think when we're seeing this report in 6 months' time, we need to think about what do we need to do in the lead up to you considering this report. And I think we can look at sending out maybe some reminders and things, particularly for the online courses. But I will find out the number for you.
Thank you. I'm trying to remember back, and I know I've attended risk training, but I'm worried I may not be up to date, so I'll go and check. Thank you, convener.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Spears?
Yeah, on page 131, Children's Services, the Senior Leadership Team. Can you expand a bit on the work's been undertaken to complete this review?
Can I just clarify, did you say 131? I think that's the information that Kenny McNeill has just provided in the response that he just gave in relation to Appendix 2. It's the same response.
So we have just appointed a manager to look at this. So how was it previously handled then?
Children's Services previously didn't have a business management coordinator that was available to undertake this review, and they are responsible for undertaking all of the corporate reviews and strategies and pulling them all together.
So we can then look forward to getting a review. I did think he did say next month.
During Q1 and Q2, yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Redmond?
Thanks. Just on page 134, it's talking about the housing standards, possible changes to fire safety, and we're awaiting the national changes on this, and I think it's going to be around fire safety. Do we have any idea when we'll get confirmation if there will be national changes to this, these regulations, and are we prepared for the risk? Does the HRA have this built in, additional costs that might be incurred with this?
Convener, can I bring in Paul Ferguson to answer that question, if that's okay?
Thanks, Cam. Yes, so we have seen some changes in legislation in England and some guidance in Scotland. What we've done for us is mainly to tower blocks. What we've done is we've carried out surveys of every single tower block and got a section of medium risk for that. But one of the key recommendations is that there's a Type 4 fire risk assessment carried out on each block, which we're in the middle of procuring, and obviously considering how that impacts on our residents because it's quite invasive. And we have built into our 5-year capital plan some assumptions for possible capital costs and release to this work, but obviously those will be crystallised until that Type 4 fire risk assessment will be carried out at some point in June, hopefully the summer or autumn of 2025 is the intention for that. So that's a Type 4 fire risk assessment of every one of our 13 tower blocks being carried out this year, and we have made some assumptions on capital expenditure, but obviously those will be crystallised until that's complete.
Thanks. I'll maybe ask a few more questions about that offline. And then the other question I was going to ask was just above it. It was about cyber security, which is obviously it's quite a big concern right now. The way the world's going, and we'll get increasing volatility and state-sponsored cyber attacks in some cases. So it's just saying that the mitigation priorities include reviewing cyber and business continuity plans. Who is it that reviews the cyber and business continuity plans? Is it the audit committee or is it officer led? That
Convener, happy to pick that up. It's the cybersecurity plans are undertaken by each service for their specific areas of responsibility and specific systems. These are then reviewed by our IT teams, but we have a number of other mitigations in place where we have external organisations who come and test some of those for us as well. So there is a lot of work done behind the scenes to make sure that we're confident about the levels of cybersecurity. I suppose it's just worth saying as well that whilst we've increased the risk from medium to high, that is specifically because of the increased risk of an attack on cybersecurity. But we do have a wide range of mitigations in place, and we are building on those to make sure that we stay on top of that particular risk. Thanks.
And there's just a wee quick follow-up to that you said that there's a private company that's actually testing more securities. Is that sending phishing emails that's trying to find weaknesses within our securities? Is that what these companies do?
Yep, there's a range of work that these companies do, and they work with our IT team to make sure that we've got the right safety in place. But we also do things like training for officers, so that our emails go out and actually they go to members as well, just to test, because one of our biggest weaknesses on cyber is actually us picking up an inappropriate email or opening an inappropriate link, and sometimes that's our biggest risk. So we do have some emails that go out just to test that, and then we build on that through training as well.
Thanks, I'll be very careful before opening emails then. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Bailey Kerr.
Thanks, Convener, and Councillor Redmond stole most of my questions there, so but I'm glad I got the answers. Two questions, Convener. On page 135, sustainable growth, it mentions partnership board will have oversight of delivery. What's the name of the partnership board?
Convener, the working group that is established is called Future Falkirk. Involves representatives or senior leadership across all services.
Okay. And my final question is on same page 135, services to asylum seekers. With regards to, I remember when we had the Ukrainian refugees come in, and we were supported by the government regarding settlement and payment, but that stopped after so long, and we were left to pick up the cost of that. Is there any inclination that will happen with this service?
Convener, that particular service is run by the Home Office, and we provide support to the Home Office. We've not got any indication that the funding we've got at this point in time would stop, but it is considered to be high simply because there are so many changes happening. So we are trying to keep on top of those changes. I think I said at Audit Committee that I feel the team do an exceptionally good job because there are significant numbers of changes that happen quite regularly there. So whilst I'm saying we have no indication, we definitely don't, but we need to keep an eye on whatever changes are being made nationally.
Okay, thanks, Karen. Just maybe a follow-up to that then. So I remember when the first asylum seekers came and we got a briefing. It was the day before or 2 days before they were coming, and we didn't have a choice at all. Are we still engaging with the Home Office as a local authority on a regular basis to see what's happening with them?
Convener, we have regular engagement with the Home Office to try and maintain that contact and keep on top of any changes in terms of new individuals coming into our area, so that we can obviously support them as well. But there is regular contact by the team with the Home Office, yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Colleagues, if there's no further questions, I'll just very briefly make comment. The corporate risk management is an essential tool to demonstrate the highest and most important risks that are seen and managed effectively, and very importantly, recognise that it's a very fluid environment that we operate in as part of that monitoring process. While CMT have the day-to-day oversight and the management of the risks, it's important that elected members have regular updates and have a good understanding with any changes that are highlighted and why, along with any mitigations that are put in place. So it's important that scrutiny is able to be carried out in relation to that. On that, I'm just going to move the report as it is. And we'll go to Councillor Devine.
Happy to second.
Are we happy to agree the report?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you. We move into the next item, which is the procurement strategy. And open it up for questions. I will begin with one question to I think Mr Henderson, who's joined us today along with Meryl. Can you summarise for the committee some of the key changes and what the aim is to be addressed through the strategy?
Thank you, Convener, and I think that's a good, interesting question. I suppose as a starting point, the 2014 Procurement Scotland Act requires procurement strategies and sets a framework for what's required to be addressed in these strategies. So there will be to members, I suspect, a degree of familiarity from previous procurement strategies, partly because that's an important set of information to be provided. In terms of key changes, I think the key changes this time round are that there are some new key action priorities that have been introduced. So one of these is community wealth building, which I would imagine members will be familiar with. 5 pillars of community wealth building, seeking to generate, circulate and retain more wealth in communities and local areas. And one of these pillars is a pillar called spend, which relates particularly to procurement activity. So looking at that, we've drawn out to some key elements of community wealth building, community benefits, and also fair work, which is an important and very much emerging area to make sure that we have good workforces that are trained, are supported and provide benefit for the local area. In addition to that, we've identified, and I think this probably links to community wealth building as well, but it warranted its own key priority area is local supplier engagement and trying to ensure that we're encouraging and supporting suppliers within the council area to be able to compete for contracts. I think beyond that, you'll see there's much more information in this strategy around sustainable procurement more generally. I think the importance of that has risen very much nationally, locally, and we're very keen to ensure that we're using appropriately the Scottish Government's sustainable procurement tools when looking at procurement exercises. So I think these are the main aspects that we've been looking at that change from previous strategies. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you. I've got 2 questions that may be brief from my perspective, but they may be more complex in the answer. It's a wee bit about how we are actively encouraging local businesses to be able to be part of that procurement process, so that we can actually deliver on that sustained wealth across the council area.
Yes, thank you, Convener. Again, I think that's an item that we were keen to explore in the strategy, and from recollection, I think paragraph 11.3.3 covers the kinds of approaches that we're looking to take. I think it's probably important just to make a starting point, and that is that procurement regulation, procurement law has a clear priority on non-discrimination and equal treatment, but there are ways that we can look to work with the local suppliers to encourage their ability to compete positively. So 1133, I think, sets out a number of these. So what we would typically do is where we can use the quick quote facility, which for us is supplies and services up to a sum of 50,000 and works beyond a sum of 250,000. Within that range, we would say we need to use the quick quote facility in Public Contract Scotland. So we would always say, under contract standing orders and strategies, say that you would have 3 suppliers that would be invited from the suppliers available in quick quote, and where there's a local supplier, at least one local supplier requires to be invited. So that introduces a lot of availability for SMEs in the area. I was corrected by my colleague Merrill, who's with me today earlier on. We used to run monthly procurement clinics that were available for local businesses to hook into. We've opened that up and it's basically on request now, so we'll run clinics. And indeed, we've consulted with colleagues across the council, so it would either be corporate procurement that would be leading that clinic, or maybe the relevant contract or lead procurement officer from a service that deals with that area. We also work closely with Business Gateway and the supplier development programme to ensure that there's good learning to be had for local businesses, and I would encourage local businesses to look at both of these sources of information. There's a lot of support to be had. We attend Meet the Buyer events, and we're looking to have a more local Meet the Buyer event in the not so distant future. An important element is, even if a bidder is unsuccessful on a bid, we give supplier feedback. And I think that's important to get some feedback, and certainly in bigger procurements, quite detailed feedback that means that they're better informed of what the needs are. For future procurement exercises, we also look to issue prior information notices. We can look at lotting approaches, and we also look to ensure that insofar as terms and conditions and contracts can be user-friendly, that they are as user-friendly as we can make them. So thank you. Hopefully that helps to answer your question. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you, Mr Henderson. I've got a number of folks looking to come in. So I've got Councillor Hannah first, then Councillor Bundy, then Councillor Spears.
Thank you, Convener. It was really useful to kind of have had your question first, because mine follows on. Can you tell us what the total value of our procurement, of the Falkirk Council's procurement is, and what proportion of that is actually going to local businesses? That would be the first question.
Thank you. And no doubt my colleague Merrill can correct me if I'm wrong, but we're looking at an overall sum of something in the region of £300 million on an annual basis, and the spend with local suppliers equates to roughly 1/3 of that. I think it's 33.5%.
Right. And now, having had these conversations with you a couple of years ago, that's a lower figure than was previously the case. Am I correct there?
There was a dip in the last year from the preceding year. We broadly had an upward trend. There was a dip last year. What I suppose is interesting in terms of the way statistics work is that we actually had an increase last year of £15.4 million in spend with local businesses. But when that was taken against overall spend, we came down marginally by, I think, around 1% in the figure. It is maybe also worth just saying, I think the improvement service, they do some work on a national basis, and our 33.3 sits quite close to what the average is across the country, but that doesn't deny the efforts we're looking to pursue to increase that as much as possible.
I'll maybe have some further conversations with you about the detail of that, because I think it's important that we are promoting local businesses as far as is possible. And I would like to have a discussion about regular kind of reporting of how well we're doing. But the other question I had was about the community benefits. Do we have any kind of figures for the value of the community benefits that we have been delivered as opposed to that have been asked for?
We do report the community benefits in the statutorily required annual procurement report. I don't know the full figures off the top of my head because it breaks down to things like the number of job opportunities and the number of modern apprentices, training, etc. that flows through, but that's reported on an annual basis. It's made publicly available and it's reported to the Scottish Government.
Thank you for that. And just finally, do we have within that reporting a clear idea of what community benefits we have been requiring of people contracting and what community benefits have actually been delivered and whether there is a gap between the two? It's a question about enforcement, really.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah, and I think that's a very good question. And I think there can be times when there is a gap, and we're working to address that across the council. Indeed, I think recently Audit did an audit report on community benefits, and their conclusion was we had recently put into place some good processes, but they had suggestions that be improved in certain elements, and also that a working group be established to try to track, as you say, what's in a contract and what's coming through. And I think that's a key piece of work for the upcoming period. Thanks, Councillor Hannah.
Thank you. I look forward to further information. Thank you, Convener.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Bundy.
Thank you, Convener. When speaking to people in our constituencies or wards, one of the most common complaints is that the council is spending money ineffectively. So I was just wondering if Ian could explain what processes are in place to make sure that the council is getting value for money when doing procurement.
Thank you, Councillor Bundy, and I think again it's a very good question, and the strategy just draws out in numerous places value for money, and on that point I think it's probably just worth, if I can find the wording again, just noting what the Scottish model of procurement states, which is something that's noted in the strategy, that value for money is not just about cost and quality, but about the best balance of cost, quality and sustainability. And I think we're all aware of the benefits and the national priorities around sustainability. And that said, section 5.2 of the strategy does note the important element around the decisions of award criteria. So that's the breakdown of how you're looking at evaluating bids when they come in. So that's another important element in terms of how we're achieving the best outcomes from a particular contract for Falkirk Council. It has to be said that they have to be, as we would put it, appropriate and proportionate and relevant to the nature of the particular contract. So on one extreme, you might be buying a commodity like a widget, which is just a widget. So your price and quality and sustainability evaluation may look like one thing, but on the other hand, you may have a contract for something like care for the elderly, where you would be much more focused on the quality aspect than price. So that's looked at carefully by officers on each procurement exercise. It's also the case that for major procurements executive, this committee will receive what are called prior consideration reports. So it's a report that will come before the members of this committee before any exercise is commenced with the market. So that's an opportunity as well for members just to explore that with officers that are going to be engaging on a procurement. Probably another point I would make is that competition is an important element of anything that we're doing around procurement. So we put out what we think is a good specification to the market, and then they're competing. So I think that in itself, knowing that they're competing against rivals, drives out value for money through contracts. So hopefully that helps to explain the kind of processes that we engage in. And I'm hoping that we don't have that many experiences of contracts that aren't value for money. But thank you, it's a very, very good question.
Thanks, Ian. I think that was important to put onto the public record for members who voted here. So thank you. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you, Councillor Bundy. Councillor Spears.
Thank you, Ian. Erudite as usual. Are you saying to us in these difficult times, with world trade, tariffs, war ongoing and everything, that we should really shop local, buy Scottish? And as a rider, do we need to sell the council Tesla?
Thanks, Councillor Spears. Good question again. I'm not going to get drawn into a Tesla.
Not putting you on the spot.
I think the benefits that can be driven through use of suppliers in a local area can be powerful, and they can multiply up. So developing a good supply chain in the Falkirk Council area and working with local suppliers to encourage their ability to bid, I think is very, very important for the overall economic benefit of the area. And I think it's not just about us buying locally. I think it's also about enabling our local businesses to be able to compete well for national, other local authorities, other public bodies' business. And I think there was a statistic in the procurement strategy that noted that spend with other local authorities on our local suppliers equated to £205 million last year. So that's not our spend in the local area. Ours is around 100 million. Across Scotland, there was a spend across local authorities of over 200 million. So I think that shows the power of us trying to assist the local suppliers to be able to compete as well as they can for the business out there.
I look forward to seeing you and your Make Falkirk Great again.
Thanks, Councillor Spears.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bowes.
Hi, Ian. Are we still, I was Scotland Excel rep for 5 years. Are we still as active in Scotland Excel? Because there was always, it's not just savings in Scotland Excel, it's a perceived saving, because obviously they do a lot of the tendering work for you. So it's, are we still as active? Because we were the largest, we get the most benefit out of any council in Scotland at that time when I was involved.
Thanks, Councillor Bowes. We are very engaged with Scotland Excel. In fact, we meet regularly with our Scotland Excel rep, and I know that the council's well represented on the boards. We use a lot of the Scotland Excel framework agreements. We participate in a lot of them. And I think it is quite powerful to leverage the combined spending power of the public sector in that way, and it creates economies of scale and certainly pushes the suppliers to better prices and effective prices. I think you're right in use of Scotland Excel also. It's quite frankly easier for us to do a call off from an existing framework agreement than it is for us to build our own framework agreement from the ground up. So there are some real benefits to be had. I'm not sure of the exact percentage of use. In fact, Merrill has just noted for me here that of the overall number of Scotland Excel frameworks, we participate in 94% of them. So we're scoring highly in that sense of use of collaborative procurement approaches.
No, that's good news, Ian. And I understand that although you do the framework agreement, you don't actually have to buy everything off that framework agreement. So it makes it even more important, I think. No,
thank you. And in fact, Merrill was just noting for me there that I know there can be a thought around local suppliers and if you're using a national framework, but I think our spend on the frameworks of Scotland Excel actually involved 25% of that spend being with Falkirk Council area local suppliers. Thanks, Councillor Betts.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. If there are no further questions, we'll turn to the report. Just to highlight that the strategy was undertaken in consultation with a wide range of stakeholders, including suppliers, officers who also undertook procurement, and indeed group leaders. In developing the strategy through the consultation, a wide range of views were taken into account, and that's been reflected in the updated strategy. It builds on the good performance we've already seeing through the current strategy and allows us to push that further and to improve. Strategy ties us into the Council's priorities and importantly links to the financial strategy by playing an important role for us to achieve value for money in the wide range of procurement that's taken forward by the Council. It also helps us to progress further in terms of local and supplier engagement, as we've heard, which is important for the local economy, as well as wealth building through our communities, benefits and meeting our fair work standards. The recent audit showed that we need to do more in realising the community benefits we have through procurement, and the strategy will help us to do that and to take that further. The new strategy in turn helps us to ensure that there's sustainable procurement, which is effective contract and supplier management, which is important in ensuring the value for money for the Council. I therefore move the report. Councillor Bowes?
Happy to second the same. Thank you.
Are we happy to agree?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. We now move into our slightly different role, as we have a number of community benefit and community asset transfers coming forward. So just to be mindful to members of that. The first item is the community benefit lease at Canal Wall Garden in Bowness, and I will go to Mr. Kettrick.
Thank you, Convener. The first item at this part of the meeting is the Canal Wall Garden, which is appropriate business for the Council to executive to consider. It's not one of the quasi statutory community asset transfers. This is a report to consider a community benefit lease for land extending to approximately 8,438 metres squared and associated structures at Canal Wall Garden to Sustainable Thinking Scotland for a period of 20 years at £1 per annum, which reflects the benefits that will accrue from the project. The terms of the lease are outlined in the report and are full repairing and insuring, excluding the historic wall with breaks every 5 years. Sustainable Thinking Scotland are a community interest company established in 2016. They're a social enterprise focused on addressing a wide range of social and environmental issues across the Falkirk area, and their activities include food growing, community wellbeing, green waste recycling. The group currently have 2 existing leases which will be superseded by the new agreement. As outlined in the report, STS have a solid track record of delivery and securing funding to deliver tangible benefits through their activities, and therefore the assessment of community benefit is considered strong and outweighs the disbenefits of foregoing potential rental value of £8,500 per annum. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kettrick. Any questions in relation to the item? Councillor Patterson?
Thanks, Convener, and thank you, Mr. Kettrick. I'm absolutely thrilled to see this item on the agenda today. I know that we've been talking about it for a long time and it's circled around exec a few times. I just have a couple of specific questions about moving forward. I know that Sustainable Thinking Scotland have got a lot of works in the pipeline with our education department, and I know that they're getting ongoing support from CVS. Obviously, they're in a slightly separate bracket to the community asset transfers. It's similar, but it is different, and I appreciate that. Will we have a named officer moving forward that they can lean on? Will we have an identified officer that they can ask specific questions of? And also, if anybody could just comment about moving forward, how we're going to assess the rates. Because obviously that's something that we're not really able to nail down, but if we could just highlight some of the issues surrounding that, that would be appreciated.
Convener, and thank you, Councillor Patterson, for the question. The position is all community groups will continue to be supported by our community colleagues and also through my own division through the strategic property review team. Whilst this one doesn't sit within the SPR, there is colleagues there who can provide information, advocacy and support on any matter that might arise in relation to the occupancy of the property. There is also extensive support through community colleagues on things such as funding, and Councillor Patterson did mention CVS there, who will continue to be engaged wherever they need to be with the group. In terms of moving forward, they will also, by their general location, they are in the Canal estate, and therefore there will also be colleagues from Countryside who would be happy to help on any of the wider matters arranging to the master plan round Canal. So there's plenty of opportunities for officer support.
And appreciate that response. Just the second part of my question then about rates. Is anyone able to comment on that?
I understand that members of the group have spoken to colleagues in rates. They don't currently meet the threshold, but in the future, if they did, there is options available to them in terms of their own constitution and their own organisation, which would allow them to alleviate the rates burdens. Although I do know that Mr Ferguson is online and may be able to provide further information.
Councillor Patterson, thank you very much for the question. At present, the group receives full small business bonus relief because they fall below the £12,000 threshold, and obviously that's the current position. If they improve the site or extend the site and the rate of value change, we would work closely with them to ensure that was mitigated where at all possible. But again, as Mr Kedrick says, the constitution of the organisation may be a factor within that mitigation.
Brilliant, thank you. And I know from feedback from the group as well that Steve, Sean, Billy, Pete and Gary are all absolutely thrilled with the support that's been offered from the council. So I'm absolutely delighted to see this moving forward today.
Okay, thank you. I've got Billy Kerr.
Thanks, Convener. And I'm glad Councillor Patterson brought the rates thing up, because it's an important part to try and get that situation resolved, because it puts a big burden on any group that's got to take any asset forward. My question is, with regards to remedial works, because I know there was some discussion regarding the water piping they were getting left to sort it. Will all the remedial works be done before we hand over, Paul? Thank you.
Thanks, Convener, and thanks for raising the point, Bailey Kerr. I'm pleased to say that I understand that the issue with the water supply has actually been resolved in the past couple of weeks, and if that's not the case, I'll certainly advise elected members, but that was my understanding for the latest correspondence.
Thank you, Paul. Like everybody else in the room, through the last 2 or 3 years, everybody's had some communication with Sean and Steve, and the work they do with the communities and the schools is absolutely outstanding, and everybody in here understands and appreciates that. So probably my next question is to you, Mr. Reid. What engagement in the future do we as a local authority plan to engage with the group? Because they're very keen to involve all parts of the community.
Thanks, Bailey Kerr. We, aside from the kind of ad hoc school visits that individual schools make, we've just are in the process, and well, it's just about to kick off actually, or more in the process of it. It's planned and ready to go. We've got 2 specific programmes focused on the destinations of young people, which will focus on young people that are about to leave school in June, and then there will be a further offer for young people to take up work with STS from August onwards as part of their curriculum. So there's 2 very focused programmes. I've been really impressed by the work that they've been doing, and by the people at STS, Sean and Steve in particular. So we're delighted to be able to support them with that. So it's formalising the work we do with them, and it will involve probably around 20 young people in the first stage.
Thanks, Mr. Hayes. And I'm sure that the Inclusion Wellbeing team, they've visited previously, and I just think it gives them another branch as a local authority to give them an understanding, a learning of the vegetable growing and the different things. So my last question, Convener, if I may, probably to Mr. Benny or Mr. Kettrick, with regard to the biochar that they make, are we as a council looking to support them in any way we can with our areas that could benefit from that? Because it's a game-changing product that they produce, not just for water, for land. Are we, or will we, engage regarding the biochar moving forward? Because I really believe that this could be, if supported, a substantial support to the group moving forward.
Convener, from a property perspective, we're not engaged specifically on biochar, but I know that colleagues from the countryside service or open space colleagues are aware of it, and I'm sure if there is opportunities, they would be happy to explore them with STS.
That's very encouraging, so thank you very much. Thanks, Convener.
Thank you, Bailey Kerr. Councillor Bundy.
Thank you, Convener. And whilst this is good news today, this is an item that's been on the agenda of the Executive for many years now. And speaking to Sean and Steve, I know that they have felt frustrations along the way. So my question is, what lessons have we learned as a council so when we move forward with further community asset transfers out with the SPR, that the process is quicker and the groups don't feel as frustrated as Sean and Steve have felt?
Convener, yes, I think certainly in my time here, I did recognise that there is challenges in terms of resourcing not only the SPR but also wider community engagement and empowerment property aspects. As members who've been involved with STS will be aware, when it was brought to my attention the progress had stalled, we immediately took action to identify and reprioritise colleagues to ensure that we got it over the line. But members can be assured that we won't be hoping to see any transactions of this kind taking as long as they have done in this instance.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Convener.
Thank you. Councillor Spears.
At last, good news for Bowness. Can I ask the question, having visited on several occasions this locale and spoke at great length with the 2 guys that are running it, and I must say they are impressive. The whole situation is impressive. What they do with the community is impressive. King Charles was so impressed, he gets their product for high growth. Are we going to follow the King's example and buy some of the product for Falkirk Council? Since we have decided this morning that shop local is our priority. Thank you.
Convener, as mentioned on the biochar, whilst from a property perspective, that wouldn't be something that would come under myself. I'm sure colleagues would be happy to engage with the group, but clearly recognising there is procurement rules that need to be followed in terms of how the council procures anything. However, I'm sure colleagues who could purchase the product, we'd be happy to have those discussions.
Okay, if there are no more questions, I'll formally move the acceptance of the report. Councillor Devine.
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm so happy that this has finally come along. The work that Stevie and Sean have done up until this point has been outstanding. And everyone in the room today has said similar things. But the impact that they're actually having on the community of Bowness, how they participate, how they offer help, how they offer support to other community groups, how they engage, how they've engaged with the Friends of Canal as well, and as part of the Canal Master Plan. I can't speak highly enough of them, so it gives me great pleasure to second it today, Convener. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. We all agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 10, and we'll just give Councillor Devine just a minute or two to leave, and we'll go then to Mr Kettrick. It's community asset transfer of Bowness Cemetery, Bothy.
Thank you, Convener. This is a quasi-judicial report in accordance with the community empowerment requirements. The purpose of this report is to consider the full ownership through community asset transfer of Bowness Cemetery, Bothy to Bloomin' Bowness, who are a registered SKIO for £1, reflecting the benefits that will derive from the project. Members should note that following assessment of the application, it is considered compliant in terms of both community empowerment statutory requirements and those under the disposal of land by local authority regulations. The business case is considered very strong, with effective governance, and the benefits identified that will accrue for the project outweigh the disbenefit of foregoing the value of the property, which has been assessed at £22,500. In addition, in accordance with the strategic property review principles of encouraging and supporting asset transfers, an enabling fund award of up to £10,742 is proposed to support improvements to the property, including LED lighting and external yard space. If members agree to the recommendations today, the appropriate decision notice and funding letter will be issued. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr Kettrick. Any questions on this item? No. Are we happy to agree?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Harley, could you ask Councillor Devine to come back in? Sorry. She's not. I thought she went out with her phone, so I think she was maybe taking a call. Let's move on. Okay, item 11 is the community asset transfer of the Duncan Stewart Pavilion, and I'll go to Mr Kettrick.
Thank you, Convener. The purpose of this report is to consider the full ownership under community asset transfer of Duncan Stewart Pavilion to Bonybridge Football and Sports Club for £1, reflecting the benefits that will accrue from the project. Members again will note that the application is compliant both in terms of the community empowerment requirements and the disposal of land by local authority regulations. The business case is considered strong with effective governance, and the benefits identified that will accrue from the project outweigh the disbenefit of foregoing the value of the property, which has been assessed as £12,500. In addition, in accordance with the strategic property review principles of encouraging and supporting asset transfers, an enablement fund award of up to £76,440 to refurbish the property and improve its accessibility is recommended. If members agree to the recommendations, the appropriate decision notice and funding letter will be issued. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr Kertrick. Is there any questions in relation to the community asset transfer of Duncan Stewart Pavilion? Councillor Buchanan.
Thank you. In terms of questions, I was just going to make a small statement in relation to supporting it. Is it not appropriate at this time?
There are no other questions, Bailey Buchanan, so if you wish to do so, you can do so.
Fine, thank you very much. First of all, before I forget, as I go on, I would just like to thank Paul Kettrick and his team for the wonderful work that they've done all over the district in terms of supporting local community groups taking on different areas. Now, Duncan Stewart Park was gifted to the people of Bonnybridge by Duncan Stewart, a former builder. The football situation there in terms of the pavilion, which we're talking about, has suffered over the years because of the factors that all these facilities have been underfunded for so long. What happened was a number of years ago, and I played football in that park for many, many years, Bonnybridge Juniors Club took on the pavilion and the park, and they did all the work. The Connell family, headed by Ruby Connell, who's internationally famous, did a wonderful job for many, many years, not just supporting the community and giving an opportunity for young boys to be playing junior football, but also they looked after the park. This group that's here now, Bonnybridge Football and Sports Club, have did a wonderful job with the young people in the community. Hundreds of young people have come through their stages supporting the football fraternity in Bonnybridge, and I'm sure that they're going to do a wonderful job, and I fully support this. And if possible, I would like to formally move that we agree the full ownership, community asset transfer of Duncan Stewart Pavilion, if that is possible, convener.
So you're moving the report?
I'm moving the report,
yeah,
if possible.
That's fine. Just to make that clear, that's absolutely fine. But are we all agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Oh, apologies, Councillor Redmond.
I was about to say second that, but just if I could say a wee bit, just the same as all the other community asset transfers, I'd like to say a special thanks to Colin Scott and Brian Houston for Bonnybridge Football Club, who have put in an enormous amount of work to get this through. So I think that's really important that we recognise them. And the pavilion had fallen into disrepair, really bad disrepair over the last 10 years probably, but they've already started. It's been painted on the outside, and I welcome the enablement funds that's coming, because that will hopefully make a big contribution towards getting up to an acceptable standard going forward. So I think it is exciting times for the park. We've got challenges going forward, especially down the Duncan Stewart Park area with antisocial behaviour and things, but seeing this investment coming down and hopefully getting kids off the street into football should hopefully maybe help to alleviate that. But I think that's it. So second that, and I'll say thanks to Mr Kettrick and Charlotte and obviously Arthur Berg, who've put in a lot of work to this as well. But I would like to second Councillor Buchanan's motion there. Cheers.
Okay, thank you. We're all agreed? Yep.
Agreed.
Okay. Final one is the community asset transfer of Banknock Community Hall. Go to Mr Kettrick.
Thank you, convener. Again, this is to agree the full ownership through asset transfer of Banknock Community Hall and adjacent additional land to Banknock Community Hall Management Committee at a proposed purchase price of £1, reflecting the benefits that will derive from the project. Members should note again that following assessment of the application, it is compliant both in terms of community empowerment requirements and the disposal of land by local authorities regulations. The business case is considered strong, and again with effective governance, and the benefits identified that will accrue from the project will outweigh the disbenefit of foregoing the value of the property, which has been assessed at £60,000. in accordance with the strategic property review principles of encouraging and supporting asset transfers, an enablement fund of up to £120,224 is proposed to be recommended, which will improve the overall condition of the property, including new windows, roof improvements and internal alterations, amongst other works. If members agree today, the recommendations will feed into the appropriate decision notice and the funding letter will be issued to the group. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kettrick. Any questions in relation to this item? Billy Buchanan.
Aye, sorry to come in once again on this issue, but I had to say something. Banknock Community Centre is a famous hall, known throughout the whole of the UK, because in the 1960s, I used to go there. Everybody went there on a Sunday night to the dancing, a famous folk group called the Hawks. And it's wonderful to see that this organisation is going to take this on and keep this community asset going for posterity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bailey Buchanan. If there are no questions, I'll formally move the report.
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay, thank you. We will now be moving into private session. So can I ask those that are online to ensure that you're in a secure place where you can't be overseen and overheard? And officers will just take a minute or two to bring the live stream down.